Hi, friends. I'm here to talk a little bit about peacemaking. I have a peacemaking event happening. It's happening in Southern Alberta. So if you live anywhere near Southern Alberta and you want to come join us, it's on April 11th. It's $75, and that includes lunch and a sound bath and all of our coaching and conversations. I'm really excited to talk there about peacemaking because it feels like something that's been like kind of tender on my heart recently. Just really kind of tapping in this way of it's a conversation that needs to happen. And I think that we often talk about it when it comes to our global community. We talk a lot about peace and how we can create it. I think we at least think about it. But I think sometimes it feels a little bit overwhelming. Like, what could I possibly do? I'm one person. How is that going to ever make a difference? But I just want to encourage you that it does make a difference. And we're going to talk all about why and how there and how us making a difference in our own selves and in our small community, like the community of our home, our nuclear family, the community of our larger home, our community like the town that we live in, and then the community of our global community as well. There's a quote I want to share with you from one of my mentors, Thomas McConkie, and it says this: I can imagine a more beautiful version of myself that I know in my heart to be possible, and I plan to pursue it with integrity and tenacity until one day I have lived into that possibility and made it real. I want to mention that this is true. This really can happen, that I am a very different person than I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, especially 10 or 15 years ago. That so many things have changed about me, things that I felt like were never malleable, that really are. That I'm very different than what I thought that I was. And that the more that I've changed, the more I've also become familiar to myself. I've talked about that before, but it really is true. And there's these changes that can happen over time that we notice that maybe are kind of small and simple. And then we look back and we're like, wow, that's really huge. And one of the most really huge things for me is peace. Peace being calm, peace being lower conflict. And it started first by lower conflict within. It started with me working on me. I made a post recently that said that I haven't yelled in 6 years in my home. Although my son Ruben was like, although when we're playing Dutch Blitz, you get really loud. So beyond Dutch Blitz, I haven't yelled in 6 years. I don't actually think I yell at Dutch Blitz either. But, anyways, and because so many of those things have changed about me, but I feel like one of the biggest ones is that anger that I used to feel, that frustration that I used to feel, and it bubbled up so much. And it didn't change because I tried to force myself to stop yelling. It changed because I worked on my inner world. My inner world was that one where it felt like there was so much like rage and anger and shame and frustration. And maybe that doesn't look like your emotion. Maybe your emotion is more withdraw or critical or blame or defensive or resentment or bitterness. There's so many ways that it can show up. But for me, it was more of the like hot flavor, like the spicy flavor of like anger and frustration and defensiveness. And I feel like that is the biggest shift that started happening. But it first started with me. And as I started to notice that shift, I really noticed tangible changes within my own home. That my kids' fighting decreased drastically, that over time they started to get along so much more, that our home was just a more calm and peaceful environment all of the time, that conflict just didn't happen. And that if there was things that we disagreed on, that those disagreements could be handled so much more peacefully and with so much more understanding, and everybody just being open to talking about it and listening to each other. It was a night and day difference from what I grew up with when I was little, from what I also engaged in when we first started our family 20 years ago. It's been a significant difference for me. And so when I talk about how peacemaking has been on my heart, it's not just peacemaking in like the entire world. It's also like, what does peacemaking look like between me and my partner? What does peacemaking look like between me and my children, me and my friends, me and my family when we get together for family functions, me and my local community? In the Buddhist book by Thich Nhat Hanh, No Mud, No Lotus, and You Are Here, he talks about how we need to address what's in us first before we can address what's in front of us, the person in front of us, before we can address the world at large. So I want to offer that peacemaking starts within and it starts with us. And I know that sometimes that feels like I'm just too small, that it's too insignificant, and what I do doesn't matter. I really, truly believe that what you do does matter. And just like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world means I start with me, with my world, with my inner world. And then I can move to my outer world, my small outer world of my own personal family, of my own personal friendships, with my own personal relationship with my partner. And then I can move out beyond that to the global world together. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And I also just encourage you, even if you can't come, just to start thinking about that. Like, what is some conflict happening within? How am I divided on the inside? How am I lacking unity within my own self? Where am I not listening to maybe parts of myself that want to be heard that I'm kind of pushing down? We're often kind of condescending to our own inner selves, right? We start to feel frustrated or sad about something happening. And this other part of us comes in and is like, that's okay. That's not big of a deal. Like, you're totally fine. Get over it. Or look at the positive. Count all the things that you should be grateful for, right? We kind of do this thing where we shove ourselves down sometimes. And that is opposite of what we're going for. Peace is actually going to come through a storm. It's going to be a little stormy at first. And I want to offer that it starts within us. So as we start to notice like what feels like conflict within myself and we address that first, we're going to be so much better suited to be able to address the person in front of us and then to the world at large. And I also really believe that we change the world energy. I remember I was in a hypnosis class. I think it was in California, but as a group of meditators, they came together and they decided they were going to meditate every day for a month. And it was some sort of an experiment. And they actually were studying like crime in the area. And so they would measure crime in the area. Then they had all these people meditate for like a month every single day, specifically on peace. And then they measured the crime in the area and had decreased drastically in that time period just from these people getting together to meditate. And I know that might seem a little out there or woo, but I truly believe that the changes that we make energetically change like the collective. And so if we do this work, it is also changing the collective. One more poem that I want to read you. I said, what about my eyes? He said, keep them on the road. I said, what about my passion? He said, keep it burning. I said, what about my heart? He said, tell me what you hold inside it. I said, pain and sorrow. He said, stay with it. The wound is the place where the light enters you. That's by Rumi. As we struggle through our own inner stuff, as we enter the storm, the eye of the storm that's within us, the conflict that's within us, and we move through all of that like a tunnel. I've talked about emotions being like tunnels. As we move through that, we will move to inner peace within. And as we do that, it will move to inner peace without as well. But we have to engage in that wrestly stuff. We have to engage in that stuff that's within us. I think it's the suffering, the hard stuff, the conflict within ourselves that is like the matter that transmutes to something else, that changes to something different, that metabolizes to something different. So we really want to engage with that and not just avoid it or react to it like was my go-to in the past. And I just want to offer, just like the quote that I started with, I can imagine a more beautiful world, not just in me, not just a more beautiful version of myself, but a more beautiful version of the world. I can see it. It's tangible. I can see possibilities. And I really believe that we can be a significant change for good, a significant change for light. One of the things I love about Thich Nhat Hanh is that he decided at some point over the last several decades that he didn't just want to sit as a monk and meditate every day, but he wanted to take all of this peace and love and joy and easing of suffering that he was feeling within, and he wanted to do something about it. He created a whole group of activists, peaceful activists, to create real change where they could get together and talk about what can we do about the earth and global warming? What can we do about conflict that's raging? What can we do about starvation? And we'll be talking about these topics as we get together in April as well, but it does really start small first. And the smallness that it starts with is us and our inner world. So I just encourage you to engage in that wrestle yourself, engage in that dialogue yourself of where is there conflict within me? Where am I feeling divided within me? And start there. Thanks for being here.